Welcome to the R video tutorial on Splines Part 9. Yes, we are 9 parts into this thing. And here we're actually going to use the spline function. So what I've done initially is copied and pasted our picture over here from the code above. So if you haven't watched the previous videos, you might want to go back and do that so you can have this code and you can find out where we are in this process. So here we're actually at the end. We're going to use our functions that are automatically going to put splines on our picture. So what I needed to get is a base picture, and this is the code that I copied and pasted. So I would highly suggest you go and copy and paste it, and it should produce this picture for you. All right, so what we've done is we've created two functions here that we want to use. We created a spline function. So I'm going to just call it spline 2. And I'm going to use the spline function 1 that we made. And if you remember, this is going to take our y1, our x1, and then our knots. And in our case, we can actually specify what those knots are really quick. So I'm just going to make my knot 1 here equal to, and then I'm just going to put in the number. So right now, I'm going to just show you how to do this. And what we'll do is ultimately lay a whole bunch of them on here. So we can lay one with one knot on here, and then I'll show you how to put it all together. All right, then we need to do is fit 1, or predict 1, I'll call it pred 1, is going to be, well, we need to get our pred data. So this will be our pred 1 data. And we're going to take the other function that we used. We made this X matrix builder, right? So if you remember, if you scroll back up, so you're going to get a little dizzy here. If we scroll back up, we made a function that will build our X matrix, and it's right here, okay? So I'm going to copy and paste that. Pop it right here, but I'm going to put in x2 because this is the data we wish to predict on. And if you go back to the previous videos, you'll see that x2 is just a sequence that goes from 0 to 120, or 1 to 120. So this is going to set up our predictive data. So here it'll be pretty easy, but the knots have to match. So usually you should make the knots outside so you can just pop it in there once, and then it'll work fine. Then what we can do is then we can get out our pred 1s, and this will be just taking our pred 1 data that we've just going to make here and %, spline 2, and it should pop this out and give us, if we've done this correctly, our data that we want to plot. So pred 1, plot, just look at the values. These are the values. And if we want to add them to our plot, so I'm going to do lines here. X2 is what we put in right here. These are our predicted values right here. And now all we need to do is add some color to it and see what it looks like. And this will overlay this right on our picture here. So let's say the color we want is, maybe we'll try cyan. And we'll make the line width equal to 3. See what that looks like. So here I'm going to add this on here. And you can see this is the picture we got before. I'm going to zoom into this. So here's our cyan line cutting through this. Maybe that's a little bit too hard to see, but it doesn't matter because we're going to add a few more. Because this is so easy to do. Because now I can define my knots. And I'm just going to copy and paste this real quick here. And I'm going to define my knots outside like I did before. So here I've got knot 1, and I'm going to call it knot 1. I'm going to remove it from here because I need it here as well. I'm going to remove this from here. I'm going to define knot 1 outside of the function. That way I don't even have to put it in again, and I can ensure that the two are exactly matched. So I'm going to put in here knot 1. I'm going to make it equal to, let's say, well, we had 40 in there, so let's see, there was 10, 20, 40, 80, and 110. If I can type it, 110. There we go. So if I run this, I'm going to change the color because it's going to lay another line on there. Let's make this one purple and see what that comes out as. Now, this is going to put in all the knots that we just listed, and it does it automatically. So this few lines of code allows us to build this spline through this data. Okay, so just this little bit of code allows us to put this other spline through the data, and I'm going to zoom in, and this probably wasn't a good color either, but you can see the purple come up here and snake through the data. And these are two splines, and what we did is not just make splines, we made it automated, right? So all we have to do is tell it where we want the knots. We put in our Y data, put in our X data. Here's where the knots are, and it'll fit it, and we can get it to predict it. And if we wanted to, we could put the predictions in something else as well. But I'm not going to do that right now. We're just going to leave it as it is because we have bigger fish to fry in terms of this. Because one of the complaints you might say is that, Ed, look at this. This thing's got corners. I don't like corners. Our real data is nice and smooth, and I want to have nice, smooth data like that. And that's where we're going to have to worry about having a higher order spline. And that's where we're going to jump to our next video. But knowing how to choose these corners is incredibly important because that's what you're going to have to do when you build splines is know how to choose those so that you get the fit that you're looking for. All right, so we'll focus on smoothing this out in the next video.